Hey, I'm here to show you how to make this 6x8 shed. Now, I'm going to be using this as a chicken coop. It's an awful fancy chicken coop, but you could just use it for whatever kind of shed you wanted, especially if you just have a small amount of area and need a smaller shed. Um, I'll go through the directions how to make this thing. You can watch it. I'll also make the directions PDF and make those available somewhere. Hey, so this is my old chicken coop. I mean, it's lasted for 17 years, like crazy. But now it's all it's getting dry rot and it's kind of falling apart. So that's the reason I'm gonna kind of move up to a new chicken coop. And besides, I want a little bit bigger one. This was originally built for kind of a city yard, and now I got a lot more space. So I want to build a bigger one, anyways. So this is where I'm going to put the shed. I already cleared out the grass, and now I'm just going to put these blocks I got, set them in the ground even and level before I start putting the 4x4 pressure treated skids I'm going to use to build on top of. So anyways, I'm going to get to setting these, and then I'm going to put some gravel down, keep weeds down and stuff. If you're thinking, Mark, you have a big level, you're right. Thank you. Wow, so that was a lot of work just getting in this. But now it's even, so building from here is going to go a lot easier. I think I'll call it a day. I'm kind of tired of the mud. Hey, so I just got back from Home Depot. Actually, I made 2 trips. It takes me like an hour and a half to get there and back, so it's a long time. But anyways, it's a lot of wood to build this. It's like 42 2x4s just for the walls. And so anyways, it takes a lot of time just going to the store. If you're asking why I'm always working in the rain, it's because I'm in Oregon and it's been raining for like 3 weeks, so I just need to get started on this project. So if you have these 2 tools, you can probably do just about most of the cutting with this whole shed. I'm going to use my chop saw here to cut all the 2x6s, 2x4s, and then I'm pretty much going to use a circular saw to cut all the plywood and the LP smart siding. But anyways, I'm going to not show me cutting all these pieces. Usually I just have my saw sitting on the ground like this, and so I don't have anything fancy. I'll just start cutting all my floor joists now and see how it goes. So I got all my floor joists cut. I cut them to 5 foot 9 inches. So when I put these rim joists on the other side of each one, it's going to equal 6 foot exactly. And so now I'm going to go measure out where exactly I'm going to put each floor joist on this outer rim joist. So I'm going to go along, I'm going to mark out 16 inches because these are spaced at 16. And then I'm going to come back to each one, mark 3/4 inches on both sides. And so then I'll mark a line with the square here, and that'll be exactly where I'll put it. And I'll do this to both sides. So after I get all my lines drawn on here, I put these 2 next to each other and just make sure that each one lines up with each other, so everything's going to be straight when you put it together. Hey, I'm getting ready to nail this thing together. I'm going to use my nail gun. This is a framing nail gun I got from Harbor Freight. Thing works really good. I put a lot of use on it. And all I had around was 3.5 inch nails. I don't want to go back to the store, so I'm going to use these nails to nail together the floor joists, and probably the rest of them I'm going to go with 3¼ inch nails. These 3½s are hard to find now. So I put down some 3/4 inch OSB subfloor material. I want to put this on first just to make sure everything with the floor framing is all straight. And now that it is, I'm going to toenail the floor joists into the 4x4 beams down there, the skids. And you want to nail this frame to the skids just in case you might want to move it around in the future. Then you can just always pull it by these bottom 4x4s. So I'm switching to 2½inch nails to just nail at an angle from the floor joist into the 4x4. A lot of turkeys around today. So now I'm going to screw down this subfloor using 2½inch. These are like deck screws, but you can also nail this down and you can also glue it down if you want. But this thing's so small, I think these screws should be fine. So anyways, before I start building my walls and putting them together, I thought I'd check again, make sure it was all level. Because if it's out of level, I mean, once you're trying to get your walls straight, it's going to be really hard. So anyways, I checked it out and it's not level. So at this point, I'm just going to use some shims and put some shims down in between the 4x4s and the concrete, just to lift it up a little bit on the other side. What can you do? So I'm going to start nailing up my walls now. I'm just going to go ahead and do my back and side walls since they're easiest first, and then I'll get to the front wall. I'm just going to use 3¼ inch nails on the ends, and to put all the some of these have 2 studs together, so I'm going to put all those together with 3-inch nails so the nails don't pop out the other side. So anyways, I'm gonna do those walls first, and then I'll get to this front wall. And this one's gonna have a lot of pieces that are nailed together. So I'm gonna start by nailing the 2x4s together first, and then I'm gonna put together the door section, then I'm gonna put together the window section, and then I'm gonna nail it all together with the sides. So just to give you an idea of what I'm doing here. Hey, for the door headers and the window header, I'm going to be putting two 2x4s or 2x6s together, and then in between it I sandwich in a piece of 1/2-inch sheathing, and that's going to make it the right width. So when this goes in to a door, it'll line up on both sides. And then if you put drywall or something inside, everything will be flush. So anyways, and I use these clamps a lot to nail these 2x4s together. Just holds them really tight while I use the nail gun. So I called it quits yesterday. My camera was messing up and I was getting tired. I gotta carry this wood from my barn, which is a ways off. But anyways, I'm gonna put this front wall together. I just figured out, since I'm by myself now today, I'm gonna have to switch this around so it's laying the opposite direction. Right now, if I lifted this wall up, it would be on the ground, and I can't lift this wall up by myself. So I got to flip it around so I can lift it up onto this floor, and then I can scoot it forward. Then I'm just going to be, trying to put these four walls together and get them all straight and level, and then nail them together. But first we got to get these walls all set up and braced so they don't fall over while I'm getting stuff set. So you might be wondering why I'm hammering nails in. I usually prefer to not put my air pressure too high. If you do, then nails go in too far. And so I'd rather set the pressure less and just nail in a few by hand. I also put one nail on this side and then go to the other side and put the rest of the nails in, because you usually got to move it around, so I don't want to put two or three nails in this side and then start wrenching it around. I put everything I'm going to need right there ahead of time, because once I put this wall up, I'm not going to be able to move around, so I better have everything right there. Okay, on the corners here, by the way, these clamps work really good at holding the walls together pretty good. But I usually put two studs on the very end, and here's why: because when you're nailing with this nail gun here into the edge, you can never get your nail gun in because it hits a stud, and so you're always at like an angle. And I found, like, if you only put one stud here, you usually shoot the nail through. And so if you got two there, you can, shoot at an angle. It's going to catch wood either way. Hey, so I'm going to start putting up this LP siding I have. I'm going to be using a siding nail gun. It's got 2 3/16 inch ringed shank nails. The ring shank helped them stay in, but it really tears up things if you got to pull one out. I put a little board at the very top there. You'll see, and so it's so I don't push the siding up too high. I want them to line up there, and so it should be about 1.5 inches from the bottom. So I'm going to rest this, screw this in on the bottom, let the siding rest on it, and make sure it doesn't go over that mark. And I'll continue on. So my nails weren't going in that time because I was actually out of air. So I just want to mention, on these edges, I always cut off a 1/2 inch of the tab, so then the whole sheet lines up better. But you only have to cut off that on the edges to make it line up. So I got my rafters all cut. Even they call it a little bird's mouth, the little notches there to make it sit flat. I just cut one. I got one cut out and made sure it fit all right. And of course, I cut the notches wrong, so I had to make another, waste a piece and then made sure it fit fine. And then I used that as a template and just copied the design onto other pieces. You can see I'm kind of I'm about an inch off in my siding there, but that's all right. I'm going to put another one of these without the notch on the outside here, just as a trim. So it's going to cover this up anyways. So I'm going to saw some pieces for the gable part of the roof. So I'm just going to cut these at an angle. Got my saw set at 14 degrees here, and that's how I cut the end rafters, was just 14 degrees. So the same thing. I just want the cut going the other way. And since I got these things all measured out, it's just easier to cut the ends at an angle first, and then measure out how big the piece is, and then cut the end at a straight cut. It's hard to measure if you cut the straight end first and then try to angle it at the right length. So I got my gable pieces all set in place there. They just kind of wedge in. I'm going to take my nail gun. I'm going to nail up from the bottom here, and I'm going to go outside and I'm going to nail it from the outside to get the siding nailed into it. So I've got all my lines drawn here for where I'm going to put the rafters. There's different ways of putting rafters, attaching them. There's little brackets you can use. Those are pretty good. Sometimes you just toenail right into the side, but usually that splits wood a lot. So this time I'm going to try this out. I'm going to put the rafter on here, and I'm going to use screws up from the bottom. So I'm going to screw the rafter in from the bottom instead of nailing it sideways. Now, of course, you should check with your local codes to see if that's allowable, because even in sheds you're supposed to follow the building codes. I think I'm exempt with the chicken coop though. I don't know. So I got my fascia board all cut out. I used some pine board. I just got a Home Depot. This stuff was pretty wide. I need wide stuff. I want it to, it's going to sit flush even. I had to cut it down a little bit anyway, so I cut it at an angle, same 14 degrees as the roof is. And then I'm going to put this up there, nail the fascia on, and then it'll overhang a little bit, so you can put the soffit material underneath it, and it'll kind of hide the edges of the soffit material. Oh, we got our little chicks today. Yeah, they're so cute. Oh, well, I better get this chicken coop done, because I only got a couple weeks now. So I'm going to throw up this other piece of roof sheathing, and I'm going to use these little clips right here, because when you put the two pieces together, you're supposed to leave a eighth inch gap in between to allow for swelling and that. So if you use these little clips, they automatically put that gap in for you, so you don't have to, you can just throw it in there and it'll be gapped automatically, so it's a lot easier to work with. After I get this up there, I'm gonna start just getting the roof all finished up. I'm gonna use asphalt shingles on it. I got this this edging right here. This is what you put on the roof. You want to put this on the bottom edge first, and then you'll put your felt paper over top of that, and then you'll put these on the sides and the top. But you want to put this on the bottom first, and then when the felt goes over here, if rain ever gets in there, it'll flow over top of this and out. On the sides, you want this on top, so the rain would possibly get in here and then be on top of the tar paper. So that's the thinking involved there. But I'm going to get on this. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I already painted the all the fascia on this, just because when you put this black edge on it, it's hard to paint real nice, you know, and you'll get white paint on this. So I just went ahead and painted that first to get a first coat of paint on it, and then I'll put these on, and then I'll only have to do one, you know, coat of paint, and it'll be a lot easier to paint in the future. So I'm cutting my my starter pieces for the roof. These are, I just cut these off right here, and these are going to be the first row on the bottom, and then after that I just go with full ones over top of that. But you need a starting row at the bottom. And on the edge right here, I'm gonna go with the shingles, probably just about an eighth of an inch farther out than this edge, but pretty close to this edge right here, tiny bit farther. Yeah, so here's a little jig I made to keep the ladder away from squishing the edge there. So on the second to the last row at the top, I had to cut a few inches off to make it to the edge there. And then this is just a smaller strip, and I'll have to come back and put some of the roofing tar goo over top of these nail holes. Hey, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do on the inside here, but I'm not going to video the whole thing. It's too tiny in here and you won't be able to see much anyways. But normally if I was just using this place for a shed, I'd just put down some laminate flooring in here and make it look real nice. I I saw some at Home Depot for 69 cents a square foot, so you can do that pretty cheap. But I don't think it's going to hold up for a lot of chicken poop very well, because I'm going to use the place as a chicken coop. I might get pigeons too. So anyways, I'm going to, instead of putting that stuff down, I put another sheet. This is a half-inch sheeting, just like I used on the roof. So I'm going to nail this down just in case it gets ruined in the future. Somebody could pry it back up and, you know, replace the floor in it. But at least it won't ruin the subfloor. And so I'm going to put this on, I'm going to nail it down, then I'm going to put some remnant laminate I got. It was like a 6x8 sheet. So it should work perfect in here, and it was real cheap. So I'm going to put that down, and then I'm going to caulk along the edges here, make it real waterproof, and then I'm going to caulk in these joints too, and then probably paint this area just so with all the chickens in here, it'll probably hold up a lot better being painted and caulked. So that's what I plan on doing inside. Hey, so here's what I got for the flooring. It's just some cheap vinyl 6x8 piece. Actually, looking at it, it's kind of thin, so maybe I should have spent a little more on some better stuff, but we'll see how it works out. Hey, so hopefully I'm going to finish up the shed today. I'm going to put in the door, the window. I'm not even going to pretend I know what I'm doing with the door. I usually just throw it in with some screws and then spend like an hour trying to get it in there straight. Maybe it's just I buy cheap doors, I don't know. But I'm going to also put in the window. I'm going to put in the window with some screws, put a little caulk on first, use screws. Yeah, you could use hammer and nails, but I don't trust my hammering skills trying to hammer in a brand new plastic window. So I'm going to get on that, then I'm going to put on the trim. I already cut some angles so I can just put my trim piece on, size it up, and then mark the bottom and then cut those flat. So I'm going to put this trim up on my windows, but one problem with these, I think is problem, they got screws that stick out the side of the window. So when you try to put your trim on there, it kind of, the screws push your trim away, so there's a gap there. So what I do is I take my Dremel tool and I just make a little groove in there so the screws can fit in there, and this sits more flush against the window. I guess you don't need to do that. You could always just caulk it or something. So I got my door in. It's all straight. It closes nice and everything, but there's one little design flaw here. Oh, look at that! Dang. Well, I'm just gonna cut out a little tiny notch here. And it barely hits, maybe a 1/8 of an inch or something, maybe. And but anyways, if you wanted to drywall your ceiling here, you'd have to make the walls a little bit taller to let you have another 1/2 inch here even. Hey, so I got out my handy saw and cut out a little notch right there, so now everything works fabulous. So I got my shed done yesterday, and now I'm going to just caulk everything so it's ready to paint. And I'm going to caulk pretty much everywhere except the bottom of this door or window right here. I'm not going to caulk that in case some rain gets behind here, it can flow out at the bottom. But otherwise I'm going to caulk the basically almost everywhere. The trim, the windows, the door, the probably this fascia up, or soffits up here. I'm going to caulk that. I got to put in my vents too. Alright, so when I caulk this, I'm gonna put pretty, pretty small bead right in there. Make sure it's, that looks like a good size bead right there. And anyways, when I get done with that, I'm gonna take my little finger here. It depends on the size of your finger, and then I'm gonna go just smooth out that with my finger right there, and it leaves a real smooth line there, and then I'll be ready for painting. Hey, so just a word on venting. This is gonna be a chicken coop, so I want a lot of venting in it. I'm gonna put 4 of these smaller ones at the top of the soffits in the front there, and 4 of those is equal to 2 of these. So I'm gonna put 2 of these on the bottom. And what you normally want, you want kind of equal numbers at the top and at the bottom, so you'd have like 2 of these would be good. What you don't want is more at the top than you have at the bottom, so this is bad because it messes with the whole airflow. So you don't want this, but you can have more at the bottom if you want. So this is alright, or equal, but you don't want this. Got my linoleum flooring in, looks pretty good. I went ahead and caulked everywhere there's a crack, just in case we want to kind of hose out this in the future to clean it. I don't want a bunch of crap going in the cracks and everything. Now I'm just going to probably paint just edge of it, not the whole thing in here, but just to give it a little extra protection. So I'm going to put on my last vent here. I already got that one cut out, and I got the door cut out. So right here is where I'm going to put the vent. I already measured on the inside. I'm going to do it right against here. Drill a hole, and then I'm going to drill a hole. You probably can't see it. I got it marked out. So I'm going to drill right there on all four corners right now. Okay, so let's take a look at this shed I built. So since I'm using this as a chicken coop in here, I've got this plastic fencing put up right now just to keep them on one side, so I can keep food on this side and keep it all clean. But I can just take that off with this little rope thing here. But anyways, there's a little perching post for them. I've got this cool little nest box right here. so they can hop up there. And then on the floor I got these rubber mats just so it'd be easier to clean. You know, you can just pull out the mats and dump them out in a wheelbarrow outside. But anyways, it's looking pretty good in here. I think I'm ready for chickens now. You know, one thing I would have done different is probably work on the foundation a little bit better. I spent like an hour and a half trying to even this thing out. It's all, you know, hard clay here, and it was all raining. But about all the time, I wish I would have spent a little more time on the blocks and then making sure everything's straight. You can tell there's like a pretty good gap there. I got to use some shims, and I used some shims already in there to hold it up. But I mean, I probably should have put these blocks in farther too, so they'd be flush. Then you could put some skirting going straight down, but now the skirting would hit this. So anyways, that's some things I would have done a little differently.